There we go. Well, I would like to welcome you to the podcast. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. With that, introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you about? All those types of things.
Hi, I am Shane Aki, and I'm the founder of Hero Dad Mission. It's a blog that I run, and also, active on social media as well. And mainly, it's about just trying to reach dads that are out there and are, I would say, for me, where when I got married and then had kids, I sort of had this attitude of, um, not that I knew it all, but it was like, okay, I'm gonna be all right at this. Like, this is gonna be okay, and didn't realize how much of a challenge everything was gonna be, and you can just sort of get stuck in the day to day of things, and just you know being absent in those moments that you have with your kids, and there's so much. I think there's so much that we miss when we do that. We get stuck in work, we get stuck in our stuff that we want to do, and we miss out on those precious moments with our kids. And that was something that I realized I was missing, and I wanted to be able to bring some of that to the other fathers that are out there. I sort of skipped over. I'm a dad of four that are all now 5 and under. My boys
Wow.
just had, yeah, my boys just had, sorry, my phone is buzzing here. Um,
Good.
my boys just had their birthday this week, so they just turned 5. I have twin boys, and then I have a daughter that is going to be turning 4 next month, and a 9 month, almost a 9 month old. So we have
Awesome.
four that are 5 and under. So it's a crazy, chaotic house, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I mean, basically, my mission is to try and get a hold of those dads that I think are just sort of living life, just kind of the run of the mill. Like, I'm coming home from work, and I'm here, I'm sitting in the room, I'm with my kids, and sort of waiting till bedtime, waiting till the end of the day. It's like, okay, I played with them a little bit, and now I'm ready for a break. And I think we don't realize how fast time goes, and we miss out on so much when we do that. So, just trying to speak to those guys and trying to take advantage. I mean, I'm guilty of this, trying to take advantage as much as we can of those moments that happen throughout the day, and just being present with our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely hear you. We have four as well. But ours, we didn't really plan it this way. We were told we wouldn't have any. And then we ended up having, four, but they're more spread out. One's going to be a teenager this year, here in November. One's 9, 5, and 2. So they're pretty spread out. We didn't really plan it that way, but it just kind of how it worked out. It's been really nice. It helps with the chaos a little bit, but it's a little like when I think about the 2-year-old, when he is my oldest age, I mean, she'll be 20. So it's kind of weird. There's different dynamics there. She's going through some
Mhm.
stuff, that's just that preteen little craziness that everyone goes through. And then we got the 2-year-old who decides to just bite me on the leg every once in a while. So, you know, so I
all
totally
over the
understand.
Yeah, all over the place. Man, we have a lot more in common than you might realize.
Yeah.
When I heard you say that, my wife and I went through a similar situation. I think we tried for, my wife would correct me if I get it wrong here, but I think it was 2 years we were trying to have kids, and it just didn't happen for us. So we went to a fertility specialist, and I thought we'd go in, bing bang boom, here's the issue, and now we got you fixed up, you're ready to go. And long story short, we found out through all of that that the doctor basically said we have less than a 1% chance of ever having kids naturally. So we ended up going through IVF, and had a lot of struggles with that. We prayerfully considered that because we weren't sure at first if that's what we wanted to do, but we felt okay about that and didn't feel any reservations. So we went through that. A lot of things happened there, but we ended up with our twin boys, and then we thought we were done. And little did we know, 4 months later, we found out that she was pregnant with what we would find out to be our daughter. And we were blown away, obviously. And then 3 years later, another little girl. So yeah, we have very similar paths.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how God just kind of works all that out. I mean, it's just our third one, she's the one I say just looks totally different than all our other kids because she's got bright red hair. The other ones all have brown. The other ones are more, those percentile charts they give you at the doctor. They're like in the 100th percentiles. They're all huge babies. And she's just, 70, 60% percentile. She's just smaller, little. Her 2.5-year-old brother can pick her up. I mean, she's just tiny. But I can remember the call. My wife was going for her, weekly checkup, whatever. And she calls me and says, the cord is, wrapped around her neck. They're going to
Mhm.
take her right now. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do this. All right. And so it's just this trust factor that just you realize, I mean, kids are a gift, and it's just it's amazing. I think I personally, part of what turned me on to your Instagram at first was because I love being a dad for one thing, but and it's humbling to know that we don't have it all figured out, and there's always something we can be learning. So what are you trying to kind of push dads to do better, or different hobbies, different things? What kind of resources, that sort of thing, are you trying to push dads to just kind of take that next step, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think so. To me, I think it's almost something that I tell myself every day, and that I've been learning, over the 5 years that I've had my kids. Is there's some days where you get home from work, or if you're at home, you work at home or whatever. There's times where you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you whatever it is, or it's like I just don't feel like it today. I do not. Your kid comes up to you, Daddy, I want to play Legos. I want to do this or I want to do that, and you just don't feel like it. You're exhausted. You want to sit down. You want to turn on the game, or you want to
Yeah.
get lost in your phone or whatever it is. And I think the key for the first step is just show up. Just show up to those time, the playtime. Okay, I don't really feel like doing this right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. And there's been so many times where I've sort of done that, and there's just amazing moments that happen when you just show up and you're just present with your kids. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time. I think that's a myth too, is that a lot of people think that you got to spend a lot of time with your kids every waking moment that happens. And I sort of got stuck there and would let some things go around, the house and other things, because I just felt like, man, I got to spend all this time with my kids. And that's not the case. What you need to do is really take advantage of that time while you have it, and be present with your kids, not just sit in the same room as them and just watch them play and do things like be silly, get involved with them, dress up, sit
Yeah.
down, have the tea party and do voices, and, just act like a goofball. Like if
Yeah.
there's one thing that kids will teach you, it's how to have fun. I mean, they're just like little balls of fun, and they just love to
Mhm.
run around and scream and do crazy things. And I think we lose that when we become adults. A lot of us just sort of lose that, and we're just
Yeah.
serious all the time. And I think that's something that's really neat about kids, that if you don't know how to have fun, they're going to pull that out of you in some form or fashion. So I would really sort of whittle it down to just be present with your kids as much as you can. Even if you don't feel like it, show up and play with them, spend the time with them. I mean, it could literally be like 15 or 20 minutes in a day. You're super busy, you're exhausted, you got lots of other things to do. I get it. I mean, I've been there. But take some time and just be with them. Give them a hug, hold them. When your kids come up to you and say, Daddy, can you look at this? Or, will you do this with me? Those That's only going to be there for so long. I mean, I my oldest are only 5, so I mean, I can't say that from experience, but I don't want to get to the point when they're teenagers, or maybe it's earlier than that, and they start, not asking me those things anymore. Like, when's the last time they're going to hold my hand? When's the last time that, my boys are going to let me kiss them on the cheek? Stuff like that. Take advantage of that stuff while you can, because if you don't do it now, later on, you're stuck with regrets. I wish I would have, or I should have. So that's the biggest thing that I really focus on, is just be in the moment and spend that time with your kids while you can.
Man, that's really good. I appreciate you saying that. I think it's it's becoming more of a reality, I think, to me. Um, the 5-year-old, she still likes, the tea parties, or dad, she's got her little doctor kits and she'll do that stuff, I mean, whatever. But the 9-year-old, we live in a smaller rural town, so the 9-year-old, he started going out on his bicycle, hanging out with his buddies this summer. And the oldest, I like it from the standpoint that you can have more purposeful, meaningful conversations, and she actually gets it. She's starting
Hmm.
to contemplate some of those bigger life issues for her age, obviously. But even then, she doesn't want to, the hugs aren't as frequent as they used to be, or just coming over and sitting by you and that sort of thing, just because she wants to. And it does happen, and I cherish those moments because it's hitting me. We've been rural town, so you can do a lot of stuff you can't do in the city. But I mean, I've been starting to teach her how to drive and that sort of thing. We've got this little gravel parking lot. She can just, kind of learn how to do some of those things. And it's cool in those times, but I'm like, I've got 6 years left, maybe. I mean, until she's 18. It's just, sometimes it blows my mind. And part of me is scared to death in one sense. Just I have a hard time letting go of
Hmm.
them. And 'cause I remember the first time she went on her own on a bike ride to the library, which is like a block away. Well, I could see her the whole time she was going, but still that thought of, you're going to go do this. I can't have my hand on you the whole single time like I used to. And there she goes. And I have to learn how to do some of those things, but then also just with the younger ones, be in the moment, like you're saying. So let me ask you this. What's a typical week of being in the moment look like for you? What are some practical things?
That's a great question. I think there's periods of time where it's really important. Um, in the mornings, when your kids get up, for me, then that's really important to try and spend that time with them. We do breakfast, and try and do some prayer time and devotionals and walk through some of that stuff with them. I mean, meal times in general. We do the same thing at dinner time. We all try to, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and say my kids sit down at the dinner table and everything's great and they just sit there. They're perfect little gentlemen, and my daughter is amazing at sitting there and she's got great manners. No, I mean that's not real life. Like, that doesn't happen every day, but
Yeah.
that's what we aim for, and we're trying to get them to sit there and walk through what that looks like. And we'll sit there and we'll ask them about their day. We'll ask some generative questions. So we'll ask them, what was your high today, or what was your low, or we've been trying to get into emotions. What was a positive emotion that you felt today, or what was a negative emotion you felt? And we have to explain everything
Mm,
as we do it. But
good.
it's a really interesting sort of what happens is really interesting, because they as you explain it to them, that's one thing, and then they sort of sit there and think about it, and half the time, they'll give you an answer that makes sense or is serious. But you can really get a little better understanding of where they're at, how their day was, all those sorts of things. And even in those moments, is you have to be present in those moments, because you can miss little things if you're sitting there trying to be on your phone, or just checked out in those moments. You miss out on stuff. So meal times, and then another big one for me is just when I get home. I work, out of the house. When I get home, that's my time to be with them. Whether it's And whatever, I have to do. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she's amazing at it. I mean, all these 4 kids, I don't know how she does it. The house is clean most days, and, all the stuff that she does, it's incredible. So I get home, and rightfully, she's like, "Okay, your turn. I need a little bit of a break." And I do not fight her on that. It's, "Okay, do you need me to make their dinner? Do you need me to do this? What do you need me to do?" And if it's something where I'm not directly involved with them, if it's not going and playing out in the yard or whatever, if it's dinner, I try and bring them in on it. Hey guys, do you want to help me cook dinner? You want to help me make the hot dogs tonight? Or should we go put something on the grill, or, something like that? Um, or chores, washing dishes, try and get them involved in some of that. There's probably only so long that they're going to think that that's fun too. So I'll take advantage of that while I can.
Yeah.
And then obviously playtime. I mean, playtime is huge when they're asking me to do things, and sometimes there's things that I'd rather do. It's really hard, where if I want to be outside, but they want to be inside and do something, I have to sort of just let go of that sometimes and just, okay, guys, sure, we'll play Legos, or we'll play. My kids love bugs, and I don't know where that came from. I hated bugs when I was little, like afraid of bugs, and they're all about it. The other day, they're like, "Daddy, we saw this cool spider in the flower bed," and like, okay, let me
Okay.
show it, or let me see it. I'm not going to get too close, but so trying to
That's funny.
just be involved in that as much as I can. And then bedtime. Bedtime is another huge one for us, where we actually just implemented something called talk time, where we'll have them sit down, because it never fails when I leave my kids' rooms at bedtime. My one son, especially, will be like, "Daddy, Daddy." I'm like, "What, son?" Waiting for like this really profound thing that he's going to say or whatever. And he'll sit there. Um, so what are we doing tomorrow? And it's like, okay, David, I know that you don't want to go to bed, but it's bedtime
Sure.
now. So we give them this space where they have to basic free reign for a couple of minutes, all 3 of them, and they can say whatever they want during this talk time. And that's been really cool to see what comes out. Sometimes it's just gibberish, but a lot of times it's things that, oh wow, like that was my son asked me the other day, "Daddy, how do gems and rocks and stuff, how do they end up in the ground? Like, how does that happen?" And I was like, "I don't know, buddy. Let's look it up and figure it out. That's a really good question." So it's just cool to see what happens when
Yeah.
they're doing that, and I can learn from that too. So I think you got to pick. There are certain times throughout the day that you really have to be. You have to be there and be present in those moments, but it could just be sporadic too. I mean, there's a lot of times where I don't plan anything. I'm not, you never know. And the kids just say, "Hey, let's go do this," or "I want to do this," or, moments
Mhm.
just happen. And that's why you just have to be present as much as possible. I think one of the biggest problems is this right here. If we can get rid of these, our
Yeah.
phones, and put them down more often, that would be such a help. Our kids see us just with our heads buried in these things,
Yeah.
and it's something that I've become really aware of lately, that, man, I mean, we carry it around everywhere, so I have mine, but I will just subconsciously, "Oh, did a notification, I gotta look, or what have this buzzed." So I'm trying to silence notifications and be really intentional about putting my phone away and over here, and not having devices on me. And that's like step one. If you're going to be present with your kids, you got to eliminate those distractions, and then it makes it so much easier.
Man, that's good. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's just I know a few like a month ago, I think our power went out and the kids were like, "What do we do?" And we sent them out a lot, and we're not, stay inside all summer type people, or when we're not
Hmm.
be outside all day every day either, but we try to balance some of that. And my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom too, and so we have a lot in common there. And she she's homeschooling 3 of them right now.
Wow.
So it's yeah, 7th, uh 3rd, and kindergarten. 7th, she's hitting pre-algebra this year, so it's a little It's a little nerve wracking for my wife, but man, you're right. Our phones, man, it can just be such a distraction. And that's a good point. I'm glad you said that because I think we need that reminder a lot more than what we would like to think. Because sometimes I think it's just hard to admit that we're addicted to something, and
Mm.
often we're addicted to that phone or you name what it is. I think there's a lot of things you can be addicted to, but man, that's really good. You hit on something there at the beginning. How has faith played a part in your journey and fatherhood and all those types of things?
Oh man. I mean, my faith is so I've gone through with a couple of things that I've been a part of, and here the last couple of years gotten real serious about what my core values are and what's really important to me. And faith is number one. Now that doesn't mean that I'm every day, doing everything that I need to be doing. I there for a long time I was using my kids as an excuse. I don't have time. I can't wake up in the morning and do this. Get kids, I got to stay up late and be with the kids and do, and that's just all, it's what it is. It's an excuse. So that's something that I've been working on a lot more recently, trying to be more prayerful, trying to teach that to my kids. When something comes up, when they are, they have boo-boos or they're afraid or, all these different situations. We passed somebody on the road the other day. I was with my kids. My wife was had a girls' night or something, and there was an accident, and literally an ambulance and fire truck and stuff drove by us, and I said, hey guys, let's pray for them because we want to, let's hope that they're okay. And just trying to teach them the power of that, the power of prayer. And it's been really cool to see them grow through that, where we do that at dinner too, and we'll say, hey guys, who wants to pray tonight? And we went from prayers of like, my boys would love to pray for the construction men outside. They would always say, like, I pray for the construction men and the houses that they build. And it was like, okay, that's great. And now they're actually getting into like, oh, thank you for the meal and thank you for mommy and daddy. And it's, man, it warms your heart to see some of that stuff. So that's really cool. But for me, it started like I had to in the beginning, we were talking about our struggles in the beginning with kids, and for me like our infertility issues, and I had to lean on my faith through that. I mean, without that, I don't know how, I would have been able to get through some of those things because those were some really hard years for us. Growing up, I wasn't always sure what I wanted to do career wise. There wasn't something that was like, okay, I want to be a lawyer or a businessman or whatever. I just never had anything that was like, yeah, this is what I want to go do. But from a pretty young age, at least for a man, I would say, I always knew that I wanted to get married, have kids, have a family. Like that was what I wanted. And when that felt like it was taken away, without my faith to lean on, and the guidance of the Lord through all of that, man, I think I could have went a totally different direction. So that was huge in all of that for us. And like I said, it's just right now, it's really focusing on trying to strengthen my faith right now in this walk. It looks different now than it did. I mean, I don't devote as much time to it now as I had in the past with my reading scripture and things like that. But it's something I want to get back to for sure.
Sure.
And, trying to walk with my kids through this and teach them just how to be able, like I said, to pray, and also, the importance of church,
Mm.
community. We're in a small group, all of that. So it's a huge part of our life. They know that when we wake up on Sundays, we're going to church. We've already started to hear, oh, why are we going to church today? So we've had to deal with that and talk about, the importance of that, and going to, you know, thank God for what we have and all the blessings, and going to worship him and to learn about Jesus. And so that's something we're really trying to ingrain in our kids. Because I think when I grew up, my parents were very, I think they did the best that they could. And my mom was very intentional about taking us to church, and I'm very glad for that. But in terms of like hands-on and some of that stuff in the home, I think that might have been not necessarily their strong suit. I think
Yeah.
that's how it was a lot of ways for a lot of. I don't think that that's abnormal. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
our age probably dealt with some of that.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to do things a little bit differently because I think that'll help to benefit them. So it's a huge part of our life right now.
That's awesome. I I love hearing stories like that because, man, I can't help but look out at the culture around us, everything that's going on right now, and things we've seen, and we just see culturally the devaluing of the home. I think the
Mm,
family structure, and just it really encourages me to hear that you guys are being so intentional about it. And like, I know I'm there with you. We're not always perfect. We still mess up all the time, but being intentional about it, it's just we're doing what we can. And there is something to be said for teaching your kids. And there's tons of proverbs about training them up in the ways of the Lord. And,
mhm.
I just, that's so encouraging to hear. I'm excited about that. I'm glad you told me that because we need to hear more stories like this, that just people are doing what they can to point people back to the Lord and value that faith. And not that those who have come before us always devalued it. It's just they were doing what they could, like you're saying there. And
Yep.
I think the more intentional we can be, I think our kids will only benefit from it. Especially, I mean, it's one thing when things are going well in our lives, but I think
Mm,
when hardships hit or something unexpected hits, um, the car breaks down and then your other car breaks down and then something in your house starts. I get there was a time last year when both vehicles had something go wrong with them at like a week apart, and then we had a leak in the house, and it was just, you know, the kids are watching how we respond to those things,
mm,
and if we can handle them in a way that shows them that we don't have to freak out, we don't have to just lose it, all those things. We don't have to just give into all that worry and craziness that we're probably more than tempted to do. Um, and sometimes we fail. I will admit to that. But if they can see us handle those things and trust the Lord, go to prayer like you're talking about, I mean, it just speaks volumes to them. It's just cool to hear that you guys are doing that too. I love hearing that. Love it.
yeah, you're so right. I think one of the things that I heard recently that I just love is your kids. Basically, you could sum up parenting by saying your kids become who you are. And that's something that I'm
Mm,
really trying to hone in on where, okay, I can teach them this, I can say this, I can, here, guys, this is what you got to do. But then if I am on the other end, not backing that up, that's what they're watching more often than not. Your kids are watching what you do instead of, listening to what you say. So I heard you say that and I was like, man, that is so right. And it's so hard because it's easy for us to, I think, in a lot of ways to go over and, okay, teach this or say this, or and why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you? And then if we sit back and we just sort of check in with ourselves a little bit, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm telling them not to that they got to pick up all their toys, but like, man, look at my room. Like, what does this look
yeah.
like? Or I told them not to say that, but they called me out the other day and said, "Well, Daddy, I heard you say that." So yeah, it's your kids
Yeah.
are. The other thing I like to say is your kids are a mirror that reflects back to you your true self. So if you're unsure of who you are or how or what type of dad you are, just look at your kids, and they'll tell you
Yeah.
for sure.
It's very humbling for sure.
Absolutely.
my oldest,
Absolutely.
my oldest man, she and I think a lot alike, and but when we don't, I mean, it is like banging heads against each other. It's just we just we can go at it just because the problem is that we think so much alike most of the time that when we don't, it's very hard for me to just and it's hard not to treat her like a 5-year-old anymore, you know? She's
Mm,
12, almost 13. There's going to be some freedom there and some responsibility, and she's going to start forming some of those opinions that may be a little bit different, or on some things maybe she does know how to do something a little better. I just, even silly things like we were playing Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch, and
fantastic game.
I'm very competitive, right? And so I was the oldest. I always was the very competitive, but now she's gotten to the point, and I knew it was coming, where she can finally beat me. And she, you know, she can beat me very
Mm.
often now because she's just as competitive as I am. And I'm like, oh, do I just quit? Yeah, they're
uh,
just our kids, man. They're so they humble us, but it's 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 fun too, because I think God uses those things to help shape us, mold us for where we are right now, as well. That He uses those kids to, you know, change us in many ways. Um, I look at how my dad interacts with my kids. It's just totally different, you know, than how he
mhm,
interacted with us. I look at my grandpa, he was an older farmer type guy, Navy guy. I mean, strict as it can be. He softened up with us. And then when my oldest came along, his first grandkid, like, I don't even know who he is anymore. Like,
mm.
I'm like, who are you? Because he's just totally different. It's just amazing how kids can just kind of soften, um, you know, just kind of change you. And it's cool to see that. But I wanted to throw something out. How do you, as a dad, make sure, and there's a reason I'm asking this, but how do you make sure you are personally, um, caring for yourself, whether it be physically, we talked a little bit spiritually, but fitness, that sort of thing. And I asked that just because I got back into fitness about 3 years ago, started taking it more seriously, lifting and all those types of things. And now my kids are, the older two, enjoy it, and they've started doing some of those things with me, and they enjoy it as well. But I'm just wondering about you. What are some of those things you do to make sure you can be the best dad possible for them?
That's an awesome question, because I think that's something that people get misconstrued so often, is that, it's self-care, is another, word
Mhm.
that gets thrown around for this sort of thing. And so many people, I think, look at it and think that that's selfish. But really, if you're not taking the time to do those things, then you can't give the best of yourself to your family. So you need to be a little selfish so that you can be selfless with them later on. So I'm tracking with you how important that is. That's something that people need to get. For me, it's it sort of goes up and down. So I've had to do a little bit of discovery, figuring out like what is it that I really enjoy and that I really need to pour my time into, that's gonna re-energize me. And oddly enough, I don't get to do it a ton, but when I do, I really soak it in. One of the things that I really love doing is running. I'm not a huge I played football, did all that stuff when I was young. Like that was a big part of my life in high school and even throughout that. So I did all the weightlifting and everything, and I'm it's just not my thing. I don't love it. I don't get out and go to the gym, and but I do a lot of I work inside mostly. So to get outside and run, and even more recently, I've been starting to ditch the headphones, where before I thought, man, I'm never going to be able to run without my headphones, listen to music or podcast or something. And now it's just listening to, the ambient sounds outside,
Mm.
just, the bugs making their noises, the kids playing in the neighborhood as I
Yeah.
run by, or cars driving, or just noticing things, being present in that moment, with what I'm doing there. Like that's huge. And it's just it helps my mind sort of, flow too, that I think about things, or I can get really, I can be really prayerful when I'm doing that, even when I'm running, or if there's something else I have to think about or whatever. So I don't get to do it often, but when I do, I try and take advantage of that as much as I can. And you talk about fitness. That's something that I think for a while I was sort of on the, rocking the dad bod kind of group. And I've pulled away from that now too, where again, I talked about excuses. I would use that as an excuse. Well, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to do this.
Mhm.
Again, excuses. So I got at first I had I'll call it like a makeshift rucksack where I got like bricks or something. I can't remember. I threw them in a backpack and would do
Yeah.
that and do that when I was mowing or if I'm playing with the kids outside, I would wear that. Eventually I traded up and got an actual like the real thing. But it's an investment, but I use that all the time. I will literally wear it sometimes at night, just washing dishes or cleaning the house. And
Mhm.
it's not a lot, but it's something where I'm investing something every day into that. And again, having my kids see that. Maybe they don't understand it yet. They're just like, man, why does dad wear a backpack all the time? But eventually I think they'll realize like, oh wow, like he's committed. Like this is something that's important to my dad. And I appreciated that about him. I do push-ups. That's something else that I've been trying to do, a daily habit. I will do them in the office. I'll do them here at home. Just not a lot, like 100 push-ups a day, but it's something where I think you can. It's so easy to um, not. It's so easy to say, okay, well, I can't go and do the weightlifting, or I can't go run a marathon, or I can't do this other stuff. So I'm just going to bag it all together. And man, I mean, 100 push-ups is better than nothing. A 20-minute washing the dishes with the rucksack on my back is better than nothing.
Mhm.
So that's just the season that I'm in right now, and I try to give myself grace with that.
Yeah.
It would be hard for me to come home and be like, "Hey, honey, I'm gonna go for an hour and a half run while you were with the kids all day," and
Yeah.
and my kids are. I try to get them involved in some of the stuff as much as possible, but they're just at a pretty young age where
Yeah.
they don't love it yet, so they're starting to ride their bikes, starting to do some of this stuff. So I'm trying to have patience with that because I'm an outdoor guy. I love to do sports and stuff outside. I mean, that's what I would say, especially right now with being inside a lot. I like to get outside. That's
Yeah.
real self-care for me. Just being out in the sun, out in the fresh air. Those are probably two of my biggest is doing some of those fitness things, and then running. The other one right now that I have a hard time is just turning my brain off and just being entertained. I do not watch a whole lot of TV. I used to and have pulled back on that a lot. But I said, I'm a big football fan. I love football. You can probably see some of it in the background
I
here.
see the
Uh,
Eagles. Yeah.
yeah, I'm an Eagles fan. So I will sit and watch some football, and it feels good sometimes to sit down and just be like, you know what? I don't have to do anything. It's okay to sit here and just be entertained and enjoy this and, take a load off.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some of my biggest hobbies right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So, how do you think the Eagles season's gonna go? Uh,
Uh, they look like they could be a pretty good team, but you just never know. There could be injuries
yeah.
and whatever that happens, but I think they got a lot of promise.
Yeah.
I
Dak
I
just got
used to
hurt.
be
Yeah.
I used to be nuts about it. I
Yeah.
used to be really like one of those guys where they would lose, and I'm talking years ago, not like,
Sure.
last year,
Yeah.
but one of those guys where they would lose and it affects your week and you get upset about it. And I'm not like that anymore. I enjoy it and I love sitting there and trying to bring my boys into this now. Last weekend was the first week, so I we made some cookies. We had cookie cutters here that it was a football helmet and a football, and I found an eagle one in their animal stash, and we did that and decorated some
Yeah.
things. And I played the fight song on my speaker down here,
Awesome.
and we
Yeah.
danced to that. Luckily, they scored enough that we could actually play it a little bit. But
Yeah.
it lasted for like 15 or 20 minutes that they were actually engaged. But
Yeah.
they put their shirts on and they ran around the basement with me, and while I was sitting here and they were doing stuff, and I had a buddy over and they were bugging him, but
Yeah.
it was fun. They were a part of it, and
Yeah.
it felt better than, okay, like you guys stay up there and let daddy be in the basement and watch his game and don't bother me, you know?
Yeah.
So that was cool to sort of bring them in on it and, you know, invite them into my world, so to speak, with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. My oldest son's 9, so he's kind of getting into, football and different things. Um, I mean, I I grew up in Indy, so I was a Colts fan, but when I was a kid, the Colts were horrible. I mean, they were awful until Peyton Manning came.
Yep.
Until Peyton Manning came. So my dad was a Bears fan. So we always kind of rooted for the Bears, and then Manning came. So I was like, okay, this team might be kind of good now. And so but I'm with you. The last few years I've been more college than
Mm,
pros, I think. Just I don't know why. It just kind of got boring, I think,
mhm.
for a while, and just other things took precedence. My oldest is, I mean, a girl, and she just wasn't into any of that stuff. So we got into other things, and now my sons are coming up. We're watching more college. My wife is from near South Bend, Indiana, so she was born a Notre Dame fan, a Fighting
Mm.
Irish fan. So I mean, we watch Notre Dame every week, and it's just, and he's gotten into it now. He kind of has a concept of what's going on now. So he knows a little bit what's happening. I think he's going to play flag football next year. So
Nice.
yeah, so he's starting it's just fun because it was for a while, it was just kind of something my wife and I watched, and now, they're starting to get into it because especially him, because he enjoys it. And the 2-year-old brother, if his brother's into it, he wants to be into it as well. So he has no clue
Yep.
what's going on, but he'll try to tackle him on the floor, right? So
Absolutely.
so it's fun. I mean, you're right. I love that point. You just got to involve them, and it's at the end of the day, if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose, right? And really, our world doesn't change at all, as much as we would like to
Again,
think it does.
go back to what we were talking about before. What do we want to show our kids? That, you know, our sports team loses and we throw a fit and it affects us. We want them to see that, or do we want to, you know, get upset about other things and just sort of let that go? I mean, I don't want my kids emulating that. I was a jerk about it when I was younger in high school and everything
Yeah,
else. And it's just, it doesn't matter. It's a game. It's
yeah.
just meant to be fun. Everybody, you know, we take it so serious. So yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I had something in there I was gonna say. I lost it though.
You're good. You're good. Yeah. So, um, we're coming up on a close to an hour here, so I don't want to take all your night away from you, but where can people find you online? What are some closing words you want to share with people? That sort of thing. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's herodadmission.com. I write a blog on there, so you can check me out on there. You can subscribe to my email list, and I can send the blogs to you that way also. And then I'm very active on social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, a little bit there too. So just go ahead and jump on, follow me, and you know we can do what you and I are doing right here, and just have a conversation and just help each other, you know, be better dads, be better men, be better husbands, all that sort of stuff. That's what life's all about. I think the thing that I think about a lot is what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind for my kids? You know, we're talking about being present, all these moments, you know, how fast our kids grow up. And you only have so long. You know, you think about 18 years, and even within that, there's a lot of time that they're not around. They get older and they have friends, and there's other things they do. So you only have so much time to make an impact in their lives. And what do you really what impact do you want to leave behind with them? That's something that I'm constantly thinking about. There's a quote that I love, where you talk about, you know, the definition of hell. The definition of hell is lying on your deathbed and looking back at the man you could have become.
Hmm.
So you think about that, let that just, you know, sink in a little bit. And that's what drives me in these days where it's like, I do it all the time. My daughter, "Daddy, can you lay with me and read me a story, here at bedtime?" And my initial response is, "No, I gotta get downstairs. I'm tired. I got things to do." And then I sort of more often than not, again, not always, but more often than not, I'll stop and I'll be like, "No, yeah, I'm gonna lay down and read this story with you," because I want them to remember that. At the end of, when I'm gone, the thing that hits me the most that I want my kids to be able to say is, "Yeah, my dad messed up a lot. Like, that guy made a lot of mistakes. He would," my kids say it now, "Daddy, you forget a lot of things." "Yeah, I do. I'm not perfect. I'm very forgetful." And that's fine. They can remember that. I think that's important for them to realize that you don't have to be perfect. And that's something that they're gonna need to learn. But the other half of that is that I want them to know that no man in this world loved them more than their dad did. That's the impact that I wanna leave with them. Nobody, dad would drop everything and he would play with me, or he would spend time, or, when they're older, I could always call my dad. He was there to talk to. And, that's something I think we need to think about is what legacy do we wanna leave behind for our kids? How do we want them to remember us? So in the day-to-day moments when you're faced with some of these decisions, what to do, how to spend your time, think about that. I think that'll make you do things differently.
Definitely. Man, that's good. You've challenged me with some things that I need to think about, you know, vitalize some things I haven't been doing that I need to do. And I really appreciate that. You've been encouraging to me tonight. And I think those who listen to this will be encouraged too. And I hope that they will reach out to you if they have questions, or go check out your blog, all those things. Go check out all that stuff. I think that'll be good resources. And I just really appreciate you coming on tonight. Really do.
Absolutely. This has been awesome. It's been great having a conversation and just
Yeah.
getting on and talking about fatherhood and marriage and kids and all the craziness that goes on with that. I've had a blast.
Yeah. Me too. Hey, I appreciate it. We will touch base soon. But until then, I hope people are encouraged by this, and that we'll have to do this sometime in the future as well. Talk more about your blog and, life updates, all those types of things. Man, 5-year-olds, they'll keep you on your toes.
That they will. That they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I appreciate it. Hope you have a good night, and we will touch base soon.
Sounds
Sound
good.
good?
Thank you very much. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciated it.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.